if you can acquire it, it's a metabolic disease. So that's what's related to insulin and blood glucose being elevated.
I've seen some documentaries on cancer before, and one of the things that can be talked about is that when you've got high stress and high sugar, it can eventuate in a more acidic environment. And I've heard, I'm not a doctor, but I've heard things about, how a more acidic body can be an environment where cancer can thrive, whereas if it's more neutral or alkaline and, anti-inflammatory and all these things we've just mentioned, that's kind of when it all starts to get back into a homeostatic pace. Is that roughly right? What's your understanding of acidity in particular?
That's like, of all the things that you talked about, like, I'm pretty sure of a lot of things. That's one that's like, it's correlation and causation, and I don't know which is which. It's hard to delineate. Your body is really good at homeostasis. Okay. And so when you have an acidic drink, or you have acidic foods, like the ketogenic diet is largely acidic in by nature. Whereas a vegan diet would be more alkaline. But the keto diet that is more acidic has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. And the vegan diet has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. What I would tell you is the common thread between those, when well constructed, is that they're whole food and they are healthy. And keto can help with people that are tending towards metabolic syndrome and high insulin. And then, vegan, if well constructed, can have, high polyphenols and fiber and a lot of things that are beneficial. So to me, it's it's not so much a question, and this goes for vegan and carnivore too. I think carnivore can be incredibly healthy, and vegan can be. I mean, you can have carnivore and have Spam and hot dogs and be unhealthy. You can have vegan and have Coca-Cola and gummy bears and be unhealthy. Yep. The common thread to keto, vegan, carnivore, Mediterranean, any diet is whole food and getting away from ultra processed food and having high nutrients. Yep. And that's going to be the difference. That's the common thread to me. And that's the one where I would focus. Like alkaline, acidic, it's just hard for me to say. I haven't seen stuff that's really compelling. And if you are truly, in like respiratory or circulatory, like acidosis or alkalosis, it's life-threatening. So your body's really good at keeping things in like a very narrow window homeostatically. The only thing I would say is maybe if you're super heavy in one direction or the other, like there's a stress potentially, at least acutely, on the body to try and maintain that homeostasis. Whether that has an impact, I don't know. But really, in time, you do adapt to anything. So to me, it's not compelling enough at this point. But I'm not writing it off, but I don't see the data yet.
No, thank you for that wonderful distinction. That's really, that just contextualizes it beautifully. In terms of how people can get into, for example, keto, here's my transparency for myself. Like, it gets my attention. I don't do it yet. Never say never. It gets my attention. And then I'm probably one of the many millions of people that will look at it and go, oh, bloody hell, that looks really, that looks quite full on, and so I've not yet gone there. And my wife and I talked about it. And I don't know, like, everyone's choice to do it is so individual. So I know that even you couldn't speak for other people or speak for the world. But nevertheless, do you think there's some kind of, do people tend to gravitate towards it when it's an extreme, compelling event for them, whether it be a health challenge or indeed weight loss, for example? Because my honesty is like, God, I get it, but I'm not sure if we want to try it yet, but then also I'm humble and go, and this is the stupid bit, if I ever face a significant health challenge, I'd be like the first guy to go like, right, sign me up, Sean, have you noticed any trends on that? Is it the extremity that tends to lead to things like keto?
Yeah, for sure. That's where the primary focus will be. That's where the trendsetters, to your point, is going to be in pretty significant weight loss, especially when there's metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, which usually goes hand in hand with significant weight gain or adiposity. And certainly, like you said, when you're talking about cancer, coronary heart disease, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, these things are all metabolic diseases. So keto has been shown to be highly effective with these metabolic diseases because, yeah, exactly, because they're related to insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those things lead to glycation, inflammation, oxidation. So getting into a ketogenic state is going to reduce the glycation, inflammation, oxidation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and insulin resistance. So yes, it's ideal, and it's been shown to be anti-aging too. I mean, it's hard. It's biomarkers that we're looking at for anti-aging, or it's animal models. And animal models, it's like 20 or 30% if it's pretty high levels of ketosis. Now that would probably involve, one, a strict ketogenic diet, and two, significant fasting with that. And still staying active, because that's glycogen depletion. So, that's, whether that correlate, I wouldn't say that human models are going to live 30% longer, but maybe when compared to the Western diet and insulin resistance, it's possible. But for you and like what you're saying, like, is there a benefit for someone that doesn't have significant adiposity, that is not in a cancerous or Alzheimer's state, or, is generally healthy like you? Here's what I'd say. Don't think of it so much as a diet. Think about it, and not only as a lifestyle, like that's cool too. A lot of people talk about that, but think about it as a fuel source. Okay. We're meant to be dual fuel. We're meant to be metabolically flexible, where we can tap into glucose or ketones. But right now, we're in such a state where we're always eating, where we have highly processed foods, and we have medications that make us more insulin resistant, and we're not exercising nearly as much. We're way more sedentary. We don't have as much fiber in our diet. We don't have as much resistant starches in our diet. We don't eat, in a maybe a more strict ketogenic way, like carnivore, like where they've eaten that way maybe through the winter. So if you look back at and they would go a day, 2 days, 3 days without eating, and they called it starving back then, or looking for food. Now we call it fasting. But essentially, we would have been dual fuel. We would have been in ketosis probably about 50% of the time. And now we're glucosis, right? We're always in this glucose state, using glucose for fuel. And then that's leading to insulin resistance a lot of the time, because glucose is staying so elevated, and glucose is wearing down those receptors, the GLUT4 receptors, and causing insulin resistance, and then leading to that inflammation, glycation, oxidation, mitochondrial dysfunction, the telomere shortening, all that stuff, the pro-aging, the pro-disease state, all the metabolic syndrome diseases. Like practically every disease that you can look at that's not a genetic disease that you're born with is a metabolic disease. If you can acquire it, it's a metabolic disease. So that's what's related to insulin and blood glucose being elevated.